Looking at that packet. Okay, at 6:05, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Tonight we had, jeepers, I printed.
Did you need hard
agenda.
copies? Yeah, is there a set, another
Yeah.
set handy?
Yeah, there's
That would be excellent.
a couple of them here we could manage to muster up.
If got a spare, otherwise I'll
I
use
got
my
my
phone.
own.
There you are.
You have a spare? If not,
I've
got,
got spares.
I
I
got
can,
my phone if not.
I can make a copy if you
oh,
like.
that's fine. It's fine, I kinda know what's in that already. So, first thing on the agenda, this evening is, the minutes. Let's take a look at the September 14th minutes. Does everyone have a copy of the minutes?
Negative.
Two. It's copies. I've already kinda read through the minutes. I don't see any real issues with them.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the, Wednesday, September 14th, 2022 meeting of the Finance Committee.
A motion's been made and
I was
seconded.
waiting for you.
Just seconded.
Okay.
Yeah,
We have a new voice, seconded.
you found it, you found it.
It was dead air,
Well,
so.
You know,
this is
whoever
good.
sits to your right seconds.
No
Who
doubt.
sits to your left,
There's
is,
nothing.
yeah,
Oh, I
makes
got
the
this,
motion.
okay. All right.
So he's got
Is everyone
Excellent.
okay with the minutes?
Change seats.
I didn't see anything I took exception to.
Seeing or hearing no other discussion on the minutes, all those in favor of the motion signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
All those opposed, that is unanimous, thank you.
Any abstentions?
Here we go again. You're killing me over there, you know that, don't you? All right, next on the agenda, we have a reserve fund transfer with relationship to the open space and recreation.
In the amount of,
Well, it's in the amount of
$1,422.79.
70 cents. What's with this? I just looked at it. What's with the 79 cents?
Because it makes up the difference of the 21 cents in the other fund that's going towards the $2,800 that they're asking for. You didn't do the math?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, okay. So there you go.
You're killing me.
You know, we gotta take turns.
that's right.
You guys are killing me. Just making a round number. Call it a day. It'll
No
go back
way.
into free, it'll go back
They
into
need
free cash.
2,800.
All right. So, do we have someone that would like to first off, speak to this issue, and then, secondly, we have to have a bit of a discussion
Do we need to make a
about.
motion about it?
No, we have to kind of talk about the motion a little bit before we make it. And the reason we have to is Sandy brought up kind of a good point.
Kind of a good point.
Yeah, we have, we do not have an account with which we can put this toward for open space and recreation. The committee is not, it's not really formed or anything of that nature. And Sandy, in her infinite wisdom, suggested to us to put it in the 900s. What is it? Capital expenditures, was it, Sandy?
I don't remember.
Oh, you got the same problem I got. Okay. I think it was either 923 or 930, I can't remember.
Contingent upon you remembering that number.
I had written it down. So, here's the capital.
I remember reading that. Thank you.
Okay.
To put it in the 932 account? Is that what you're
932, that's the one. Yeah, add it to the 932 account.
Which is
asking? Versus a department?
Yeah, because do we have a
Allows you
department?
to access the money and pay it for this purpose?
Yes.
Done
Yeah,
deal. Is that kind of a global?
So there's no account on here though, right?
correct. And,
So,
We'll make it a 932.
I think so.
yeah,
I
so
mean,
we
there's no
can't,
department
we
really
can't
for it.
send free cash off into, not free cash, reserve funds out into space someplace. We have to
Open
kind of
space.
have, well, okay, open space.
And then
You were killing me tonight, yes.
And then, if it doesn't get taken care of in '23, it can be moved forward too.
With putting it in 932, correct?
Yeah. Which it very well should be taken care of but I think the verbiage of some of the stuff I had was he wasn't starting right away.
That was kind of the feeling I had.
He made it seem like the forester, in case of delay, he could push the project out till June of 2023, which would then push the funds out. But
Well, actually, we'd have to cross July 1st, push them out, right?
Say that again?
We'd have to cross July 1st into the next fiscal year, so
Yeah, but-
June would still be okay.
Yes, because everything that's in those kinds of accounts move forward, whatever balance is remaining, unless at the end of the year, at the end of fiscal year 23, I always ask, is the project done?
Mhm.
If I already know it's not done, then I already
approve
move
it.
it forward,
Mhm.
so.
Okay, fair enough. So do you need a motion to make it a 932?
We really don't, because the paperwork hasn't been, quite frankly, completed. It says open space and recreation transfer, department requesting the transfer is open space and recreation. It would be Department 932, which is.
That's capital
Capital
projects.
That's not a
project.
department.
Right.
I see your hesitation.
Does it have to be a department
Why
requesting?
don't we put capital projects and then in parenthesis the target organization that's gonna get it,
Well, that'll be in the description of the account I give it.
okay?
So the department is 932, and encompasses all projects that don't have a department, or it's not a departmental transfer from reserve, so that is a project department.
So then are we
932.
using the right
It's got
form?
everything in it, lots of things in it.
Can I see that form for a second, please?
We even voted from reserve into that department.
Is this the correct paper to use then? Transfer the money?
Yeah, this is correct. I'm just,
Just put
I-
932 up here,
Yes.
okay? And original appropriation is nothing, so that's the only change we need to make is cross this out to 932 there.
No, you can just add 932 to the end of that.
Okay?
So the description for that account that I set up for this
Mhm.
is gonna be called Open Space and Recreation Committee Forward Stewardship Plan, or something like that.
And 932.
Yeah.
Well, can we, there's conservation. I'm not sure what the definition of conservation is. Can we use that as a requesting?
I don't know.
Department,
that they
the department
requested-
requesting.
Is somebody here that,
Taylor.
This is open space and recreation. I mean, Cheryl technically is on both committees on conservation, but it would be us as a separate entity requesting the funds.
That conservation is Conservation Commission.
Right,
Well,
this
that's
is
what I
the
was
It's not
preamble.
thinking.
Conservation Commission purposes, though.
Right.
This is,
And I do-
what's
I
the
mean,
matter
it
with the
does
932?
overlap in the sense that it is.
Well, 932 is a
you know,
capital, they can't request it.
Conservation
Versus
project.
Sandy saying they can.
I didn't hear, I didn't.
Bill says as a capital
He said-
account, you can't request a fund?
Well, what
We-
Sandy just said is that the way she's gonna put the department is it's gonna be Open Space and Recreation Committee, Department 932. And by putting that designation down, it'll create a pseudo department. It'll be a source of the funds, and they can be dispensed from that.
That department is already set up, and we put appropriations in there that are one-time appropriations. They can be from the reserve fund, they can be from stabilization funds, they can be from free cash,
What's the name of 932?
capital projects.
Capital projects? Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't have it in front of me.
But we,
So I guess what
So we'll
what I'm
just-
getting here is and I've kind of, this is one of those things, I read through it and I struggled, so I'll figure it out when I get to the meeting.
there's no department for open space recreation,
Correct.
but they're coming forward asking for help to fund this forward stewardship plan.
Correct. And it's not, and just to let you know, this isn't a bad idea. This is more of a, we want to make sure our i's are dotted and our t's are crossed.
And we have appropriated from the reserve fund into that account. not to this particular
Right.
thing that we're funding,
Yep,
but
but for other
I think Kelly
reasons.
had some stuff a few years back that was maybe $3,000 or $4,000, and she needed some reserve fund money for that. And it
And
went
that
into
was
that
probably
capital
the
fund.
outdoor exercise equipment.
Yeah, it could have been, something like that. Yeah.
But didn't we just move the money to the senior center?
It was a grant,
Right.
which was, it didn't come out of the senior center budget. I didn't have it budgeted anywhere except
And
for,
that's-
Because,
That's an operating budget.
right, the department requesting the transfer, that's the part that I'm trying to get over. As to where the funds are going, I'm fine with where the funds are going. It's easy to make it go, move to that, but reserve fund, we're making a reserve fund transfer, we need to have an idea of who is, we can, if everyone's okay with
Is
just
that-
calling the Open Space Recreation Committee, then I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But I don't know,
I'm not calling the department that.
No,
I'm
department,
calling the account number that I set up that will have 932 in part of the account number
right.
and whatever other object I give it.
And 932 is Capital Projects Department,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah, so it has a name.
okay. All right.
So, I mean, it's really entirely up to you what you want to do.
Well, we could say Open Space Recreation Committee, 932, I suppose would be fine, judging by what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's what Sandy said, she's gonna name the account, so it's perfect.
Yeah, okay, all right, let's have a
And nothing
motion.
else could be spent from it except for what this says.
Okay.
Yes, strictly for the use, this particular use.
And I didn't have an opportunity to look up and see where, okay, let's have a motion first, and then we'll go from there.
Make a motion to transfer from Reserve Fund account number 132 to Department 932 Capital Projects for the specific purpose of Open Space and Recreation Committee Forest Stewardship Plan, an amount of $1,422.79.
Second.
There we go.
A motion has been made and seconded to transfer from the reserve fund, account 132 to account 932 capital expenditures for the purpose of Open Space Recreation Committee Forest Stewardship Plan. Are there any questions about the plan now that the forest stewardship plan? Do you want to give us a little something on it, or you
Yeah, I
want
guess I wouldn't mind hearing what started this.
Yeah,
Where'd this come
let's hear
from?
how it all started.
Yeah.
If you could move up to the table when you speak, that would be great.
So this is kind of the first,
You are, I'm sorry.
I'm Taylor Staubach, how are you? I'm chair of the Open Space and Recreation Committee. This kind of started as like one of our first projects that we began as the fledgling Open Space and Rec Committee. Many of you might be familiar with that area, the Pines or Happy Land, as it's more commonly known as. And ultimately, we're trying to kind of make a connection from the senior center here to that area as a community forest, but also having an accessible trail on part of the trail that the town owns. Currently, I think it's 41 odd acres, something like that. One of the problems that we're facing is the forest itself and figuring out what the health is, what the assets are of the forest and what it needs. So the forestry management plan is kind of the first step in doing so and trying to make sure that we do right by the area that we're trying to, preserve for the community. So it's kind of.
What kind of information do you anticipate that you're gonna glean from this
So
report?
hopefully, anything from plants and like a plant inventory, a tree inventory, getting to know the ages of some of the trees and some of like the undergrowth, what the canopy health is. There is talk about maybe a birding plan to go into that, but just generally, I know when we had a walkthrough originally with Peter Grima, he brought up some good points about
there's a lot of secondary forest that is in, not the greatest health, so that may bring up issues when we start to trail build, and that's kind of the second step in.
Would that be something that might be cleared to some degree to get rid of the bad stuff?
We've talked about it, and we've talked about whether or not there is, if logging might be an option up there. It's not a very large space, but there's a lot of invasives, so that is something that has to be taken into consideration. And then, what we're gonna do about that. The second portion of the plan is kind of to do a mass trails grant. We're working right now, talking with Greenagers to maybe come in and do that work. And they would liaison with the high school students from Wacona to have them, they get paid for it. It's a job to build out the trails and stuff. So it could be a really neat space back there. I know it's well used, but it's not necessarily,
For the constructiveness that
Certainly
we
is.
would be hoping for?
yeah, it's not super maintained, but people still use it. I use it all the time, and people walk their dogs back there. So we're
Mhm.
hoping, just to take that next extra step that really is a source of pride. I mean, it links to the Appalachian Trail, which walks right by it. You have the boulders at the end of High Street, as well as the Appalachian Trail. Pine Grove is there. There's lots of housing that, could utilize the trail. So it kind of seems like a no-brainer,
So that's Walker Brook area.
Yeah, that's the other issue is
Right.
that project
You
that
know that
is,
project, right?
yeah. But we're hoping, I think we might just miss each other, like ships passing in the night. But that's the hope. I don't know. We'll have to see how that mitigation project goes.
Will he be rendering an opinion on the beaver dam that supposedly is on the property as to whether it's good, bad, or indifferent?
So that portion of the property is Berkshire Sand and Gravel, so Patrica. So we are pretty much avoiding that area around the
Okay.
pond. We've, talked about the possibility of in the future trying to acquire some of that land, but honestly, that's a pipe dream mostly. I mean, it's his land. We can't really do much. So we're very much staying on the town property on that acreage.
I was asking because, that the dam is a portion of the considerations as we look at the
Yeah.
stormwater management. Because if that
Oh.
dam breaks, that's gonna change the touch and feel of the flood that comes along.
Okay,
So,
that's good to know.
that's why I was curious
Yeah.
whether, if he rendered an opinion on, like, wow, that's a bad dam, that would be helpful. I
Yeah.
mean, it's good to know, I didn't know if it's right
That's
there.
interesting. That's something we could definitely mention to him, even to try and get, an opinion on it.
Beautiful.
That would be great, yeah, because that affects, flooding in the area in general.
Yes, it does.
You know,
Yeah. So it's
okay,
a joint,
I'll take note
there's
of
a
that.
joint accomplishment
Mhm.
if he does
Okay.
render that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one question with relationship to forestry management, or the management of this forest.
Yeah.
Is part of this plan gonna be rendering a decision on harvesting within that forest?
We didn't really have that as a goal. And when he did his initial walkthrough, there wasn't much that he saw of value in doing so. I would imagine if he does take a deeper look and that's something that, comes up, we'd have to have a conversation about that for sure. But I don't know any more than that.
My question's more general. Open Space and Recreation Committee, what have they done before this? Should they be a department that gets some kind of funding every year for some reason? or-
Prior to kind of the formation of the committee, it was two separate committees. So there was, I want to say it was open space. There was an open space committee, but then there was also the North Mountain Park Committee. So those two kind of melded together at a certain point. We do have quite a lengthy list of objectives and goals. And mostly the main mission is to take certain parts of Dalton and really like, you know, or projects and try to help bring them into fruition. So we're still trying to find the way that relates to the public and like the community. I know there's been talks, one of the things on our long list of projects is a potential skate park that's kind of been like absorbed by that committee. But we're trying to figure out where we can help bolster the community on those projects and be almost like a voice for people who want to bring these projects to the table rather than necessarily try to do all the projects ourselves. So that's kind of, we're hoping with this project, because it's kind of like already in motion and the space is what it is, it's so ripe for development, that it kind of like gives us momentum to maybe ask the community, what other projects would you be interested in? What other things can we help you do? So that's a great, I'm not sure. I would have to talk to the rest of the committee, but I could see, hopefully with the success of this project, which we have a couple years of work to do, but that would be something to think about.
Maybe this is the best mechanism that you're an advocacy group that advocates for certain special projects that come up, and this Department 932 may be the mechanism to fund those projects as they arise anyway, and rather than having a standing committee standing department that doesn't really have an operating budget, doesn't really have, there's no salaries to pay or anything like that. So maybe that doesn't make any sense to become a department.
Maybe if they develop a track record over the next 3 years, it'll become clear.
Yeah,
But I think it's great thought to keep in mind as you go forward.
it would be good.
I was just trying to see if there were a place where we already had, something that we could put this under, but it's really isn't. Because the Concom is not
Not
place
really.
for it.
I don't think that's appropriate myself, but,
Correct.
because, you talk about skate park and, open
Right,
space type of
conservation.
recreation.
Yeah, right, the only other place is cultural activities, but I don't really know, it definitely doesn't fit that bill.
That'd be more counterculture.
Counterculture.
Yeah, right. Do you see a need for a budget in that committee? Like, in other words, association dues and things of that nature?
Not at this time, I don't think.
Okay.
We're really trying to work with community support, grant funding, that type of thing. I think that's definitely, gonna be our best bet for trying to get what we want accomplished. And I don't think there's any shortage of, avenues that we can look down for those types of projects. So, I would hesitate to kind of bring all those things in. Also, we're a very small group right now.
Well,
So.
the reason I'm asking that is, like, for instance, if you build trails
Mhm.
and it's on town property, you need to maintain the signage
Yeah.
on those trails, things of that nature.
Okay.
Maintain the trail.
Yeah.
Exactly, maintenance of the trail, things
Yeah.
of that nature. You need to have gas for the chainsaws, and you may need materials and things of that nature for bridges and what have you. That's where I'm thinking that the budget would have to lean.
That might be something to bring up to the rest of the committee, because we haven't really thought long-term about how, we've thought about, we did create a Friends of the Pines kind of as a volunteer arm of this, so that, and we've had a few cleanup days where volunteers of the community have come out and helped. So rather than relying necessarily on everyone's goodwill, it would be nice to kind of have that forethought of trying to keep the trail clean, because right now it is kind of a volunteer effort. And I know, the highway department has come in a couple times and helped us with some of the larger trees that have fallen on the existing trails and stuff. So I don't know. That's a good point to bring up. I'm not sure
At your next
I guess
meeting,
it'd
I
be-
would
Yeah.
highly
in
advise
January.
you to do,
Okay,
Think about
quiz
that.
them.
yeah.
Please think about that. Our budget season is about 2 months away.
Well, it might be a
months.
whole
So
year or
that you
two
feel
away.
prepared.
before
Well, that's
they-
what I'm
There are
thinking,
deals
but
is
but
now
if
we need to
if
do
there's
that,
some,
then
they
it'll
happen
get
to
you
stumble,
half
with
the
the
Yeah.
group, stumble onto
How
some
much
level
do
of
you-
urgency.
Yeah, right.
So
If they
just,
stumble on
and
some
that's gonna
level
be
of
rough.
urgency,
Yeah,
then we could
exactly.
All right.
establish it.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Right.
Budget,
Right.
But at
operating.
least it gives you another topic to bring up, so you guys can maybe pull up a rough number.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's a
rough
great
idea
thought.
of
Figure
what that
that I
would be.
wouldn't, you know, $5,000 is probably not gonna break the bank.
but it's good to have that discussion, so thank you.
Even if
for
we end
bringing
up
that
putting some level of placeholder there for funds, that would be
Yeah.
good. Even if it ends up being a placeholder. We've done that before a lot of times.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions, Taylor?
Just a few. Oh, I'm good. I'm
You
done.
good? All set? Okay. Okay, seeing or hearing no further discussion.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion signify in the usual manner.
Right.
Aye. All those opposed? That is unanimous.
Any abstentions? None.
Did everybody get copies of that or not?
Oh, I gotta sign this. Didn't mean it was today though, 14th, right? Okay, transfer voted in the sum of.
That would be great.
We couldn't have voted that to be 23.
No.
The green, I know.
No.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
No, you're taking all the fun out of it. All right, there you are, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Very
Check
good.
that. You're very welcome.
We'll be interested to hear the result.
Yeah, if you could stop back at one of our meetings and let us know how things are going,
That
we'd
would be
appreciate it.
great. I know, I'm sad my sister's not here tonight.
Yeah.
She's usually here, Kira.
Couldn't vote.
I know. I was counting on it.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Have a
guys.
discussion.
Yep. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Your work's much appreciated.
All right, we're
All
trying,
right,
we're
on to the
trying.
next
Slow but
agenda
steady.
item. I left it sitting on my desk when I ran out like a nut.
That's all right.
Okay, interdepartment transfers, we have done. Old business, discussion of the town planner wages. You're up, Tom.
Kinda quick.
Senior Center Director will be out.
Thank you.
Select Board had a discussion about town planner wages, especially since we have lost our town planner. You know, what we had budgeted for was an entry-level planner because that's what we expected to get, and the Select Board noted that there were a lot of projects that we have going that are of some consequence and complexity, and suggested that instead of, let's see, in fiscal year '24, it would be about $52,000, they said.
For the entry level or for the more
Yeah,
sophisticated?
for the intro. It's gone up over the past few years. I think I sent out some notes about that. But, you know, it started off under $40,000, you know, 6 or so years ago. And it went up, and this year it was paying 50-something, and so next year it's slated to pay 52-something. And they said, well, you know, we think maybe something in the $60,000 range would be something that would attract somebody maybe with a little experience. And they were anxious to have somebody come on who could work well from the beginning on the projects that we have, which are you know, fairly complex. So I looked and saw, well, okay, if we bumped it up to somewhere around there, what we have, you know, that position is currently a 36-hour position. So for a 4-day week, 9 hours per day, that's there are many positions like that in town hall. And
With benefits, right?
oh yeah, we have to have benefits for anything over 20 hours.
Okay.
And so something that would fit in that would be a base salary of about $56,000. And what we have is a 4-hour contingency slot. So before they get up to 40 hours, that is before we would have to pay overtime, and this would be an exempt employee, so they wouldn't get overtime anyway, but thinking in terms of, well, if we bring them up to 40 hours, if there's 40 hours of work to do, say night meetings, a couple of night meetings, that would bring the pay up to about $62,000. So I would like a discussion about whether you thought that was appropriate to bring forward in the next budget cycle. That's what I would be planning to propose. And I just wanted to have a preliminary discussion about that, noting that the select board had approved that proposal. And I think I might have, I'm not sure whether I mentioned that as part of my previous discussion of bringing some pay up. I don't think that was included in that. So this is a new one that came up because we have been advertising for the position. No one's been applying. I don't find that particularly unusual because this isn't a time when most people are changing jobs. It's usually more in the spring and early summer when people, leave at the end of a fiscal year or begin at the beginning of a fiscal year. So I hadn't been thinking, and it's just bad timing for us that the planner left in the fall because it leaves us with quite a gap. And Alyssa and I are right now trying to cover the very basics of the committees that the town planner did cover. But so this would bring it up.
Is the salary, when you put out the advertisement for this position, did that advertisement include a range of salary for this position?
Yes.
And that range that was
Well,
stated was?
It wasn't a range so much as the current pay is $50,000. That's what's budgeted.
Right.
And so what we'd like to do is change our advertising in advance of expected approval of a higher pay so that we can start advertising in the spring with the higher pay so we're more likely to attract somebody. And, we're not going to, as usual, be a big, well-paying town like you find near Boston. But there's a lot of planning graduates out there too. So I think we have some chance of getting one of the new crop of people if we advertise early and aggressively in the planning schools in the Commonwealth. And we've been advertising on websites and in the Mass Municipal Association. There's a Mass Planners email list that we've advertised to. And we have gotten 4 applications, one of which withdrew, 2 of which were not particularly well suited for the position we have. One of whom is, and we're pursuing her not overly aggressively, but with definite interest. So, but that's not many. That's not a big pool, and we would like, half a dozen, 6 or 8 applicants to choose from. So the select board's thought was, let's not, necessarily treat this as an entry-level planner. Let's say we want somebody with some experience, and they said, well, what would that take? And what we're paying now is not unreasonable for somebody with the kind of soup to nuts basic planning stuff that smaller towns have. We're a relatively small town even to have a town planner position.
Yeah.
That said, the position was very much appreciated by people in town and by everybody like me who would have to fill in
You're right.
if we didn't have that position. So, very useful, had the potential to get a whole lot done. And the more experience the person has, the better quality a candidate we can get, the better we'll be able to do that work. When we advertised before, we had really 2 qualified candidates, and one of them pulled out the day of her interview. So, again, I think a little bit more money would go further, and that pay would be more commensurate with what other people in town hall make.
So, digesting this down, you mentioned a couple of numbers. You mentioned 56,000 and you mentioned 62.
Yeah.
What's the number that you would like to ask?
Well, the 62, and again, this will come in the form of the budget proposal during the budget setting process. What I'm looking for is a preliminary discussion that would make me feel comfortable in saying we can offer this amount of money. So the amount budgeted would be 62,000. The base salary would be 56.
Understood.
And the contingency would be
Yep.
the extra 4
So,
hours.
what it says here on the web is that the average salary of a planner in the state of Massachusetts is $59,910. So, what we're doing is we're being, on average, competitive with that salary range. With, and we're not talking monster amounts of money. And it takes us out if nobody really is interested to, we might get the 6 people that you're looking for, so you can weed through them and pick somebody whose personality matches the town better.
Always good to have a pool.
Well, it's critical to have a pool, because you can't, you just end up being victim to whoever shows up without it. So, I for one, strongly support, an increase. To $56,000 for sure, and with 56 to 64 or 62, I think that's a good strategy for the reasons that makes us competitive in the state.
And the position is currently, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The position is currently allocated at 52, you said, as a salary?
That,
It's
sorry.
it's on the budget sheet.
Yes.
This year,
50.
it's about 50.
Next year, it's 52.
It would
next year.
go up to
Yeah.
52. I'm asking for it to go
Yeah.
up to
No, I got it. Yep.
base of 56.
Right.
Plus the contingency
But,
hours.
so the increase is of 4,000,
Yeah.
potentially $4,000 more.
Which would be a couple of steps
Right.
higher, yeah.
So I know you did.
Could
work
even
a
be
couple
3 steps higher.
Years ago regarding the job descriptions, and a consultant came on board and took a look at all the jobs and gave you a salary range for those entry levels. And was this one of the positions that they reviewed, or?
Yes,
And did they give you a basic entry level range versus midpoint versus?
yes.
High end, and
Yeah.
that number you're asking kind of fits within the range that we're,
Oh, it certainly fits within the range. What we had asked for was comps from 5 towns. We got
Right.
comps from 5 towns.
Right.
I think we asked for 6, and one of them didn't follow through. And instead of taking the median of that, counting the median as 50%, we agreed on a 60% level
Yeah.
to try to be able to say that we were competitive. And what we've seen is that there are differences in levels of experience. So the average planner salary being $60,000, that means that there are a number of planners below that. And we were starting off where it was still an increase over where it had been. Again, it started in the 30s about 6 years ago. And that was really a bit too low.
It wasn't that many hours, though.
Okay. Okay, thank
Not
you
a
for
full-time
clarifying.
position.
I think another important thing to look at is that in the upcoming years, we're going to have some significant need for a planner when it comes to preparing for global climate change. And that it's going to be a number of additional projects, more grant funding, more complicated grant funding, more projects that are going to have to be executed in town and so forth. If we can get somebody here that's got a bit more sophistication rather than learning on the fly, it's going to behoove us now as we get some of the backlog squared away, and it's going to set us up nicely to go forward with some of the Green Committee type stuff that is anticipated. Right now, the Green Committee is kind of just a little focused on the town hall.
Right.
But in the future, the scoop is we're looking at not only the town hall, but becoming a climate leader community, getting much larger grants to put in solar panels, solar canopies with panels on them, electric buses. There's gonna be a number of grants, and hopefully each year we can get it. And then the other part of it is not only just getting the grant, there's the execution of the grant, where you want to expend the money within a calendar year so you can re-up for the next load of money. There's very aggressive goals for greenhouse gas reduction by 2030, and so we're gonna need somebody to help us guide the cart, lead the horses as we try to go and manage that. It's supposed to be at 50% of our goal by 2030. That's a massive 7 years from now kind of thing. Huge.
And, that said, I wouldn't be opposed to paying everybody a lot more money. I think that what I'm asking for is commensurate with other existing staff pay.
My words were basically to reassure folks that this is not something where it's an old position and we're just, while we're paying somebody more to do the same old thing.
Right.
No, this thing is gonna get some heavy engine, heavy horsepower that's gonna have to try to help us steer. And I know that as we in the Green Committee try to put in for grants and coordinate with some of the state resources, it's been a little bit more challenging without having a planner that knows the telephone numbers and talks with these people on a regular basis.
Tom, listening to this discussion, is there, instead of, because this planner's position requires excess work, basically overtime work, would it behoove us in this case, and I know it's different than the rest of the town, but to lift it to a 40-hour work week, but make it flex hours and take it to the number we're talking about?
Well, that's essentially what we're doing by having the base salary and the contingency. There may be times when there's more, times when there's less. Again, it is an exempt position, so it's not as though they'd be getting overtime over 40 anyway. Mm-hmm. I think it's understood that there are flex hours, and I, as the supervisor, would certainly say, yeah, of course, because the planner of all staff would work more evening meetings.
Well, that's
than
my
anyone.
thought process.
Yeah.
Is if we're gonna have this case of evening meetings, and the evening meetings for the town planner are as much, if not more, than what you have to attend. They're two very similar positions when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
So and Sandy as well. Sandy has many of these. So I'm just the thought process being make it a base pay, 36 hours mandatory per week, and then flex hours would be
Thank you.
or 40 hours a week, whatever. When it comes down to that, say it's a 40-hour work week. If you work extra hours, then take extra hours off, and try and the thing is with me when it comes to flex hours is take them off. Don't build
Right.
them up.
And
If stuff falls behind, it ends up falling unfortunately behind. But
well, then that shows the
It's-
need for some clerical assistance.
Well,
and getting
if that's the case, yes.
That kind of thing, the grant administration, let's say, which is more cut and dry. Yes, and I actually think that's an argument for keeping it at 36 plus 4, because what that means is the person is only obligated to work 36 hours a week. But if they choose to, they can work that extra 4 hours, but that's up to them.
And if they did, they would get reimbursed for it.
Oh yeah,
They just put it on their time card that they worked.
The reason
There's
I'm
contingency,
the
yeah.
reason I'm bringing this up is we're trying to do this whole convoluted contingency thing that we do, and it's as convoluted as, in my opinion, as it can get. Is let's say we've got these hours. This is what we're going to pay you if we hire you. Call it a day and flex it around where you need it instead of come up with this. It just seems so convoluted to me. these 36 hours with a 4-hour contingency and so on and so on and so on. It just seems so blessed convoluted to me that might be why we're not getting people, because they don't understand the convoluted system that we have. I can tell you, if I'm looking for a job, I want to know what I'm going to get paid and when I'm going to get paid that. How far off am I?
The other thing that I found was when I
We
worked,
understand it, mind you, but
It's
People
an
on the outside
incentive.
may not.
It's an incentive to work 40 hours, but
Okay.
not a requirement, which I think would be attractive to a candidate.
okay.
I mean, that's what we do now. We've been doing it for years. We get 36 hours, and if we work an extra 4, we get 40. But if we work an extra 18, we only get 40.
when I worked with the planners, part of the Green Committee, we often had meetings on Fridays and Saturdays and even sometimes Sundays. And the scoop was, it wasn't because he came in special, but because he was there already working. And the scoop was that he said, this is the best time, given what I've got to do today, to meet. So I think that he's gonna, I think your point is well made, that this is gonna end up being a 40-hour job. But I think in principle, what Tom's looking for today is that we're gonna endorse more, right? That's
Yeah.
kind of what
I
you
have
wanna know.
I have no problem with more at this point, but I just,
If we can say the job pay, the job range is
why does it
56
always
to
have, why does it have to be
62.
convoluted
That'll
forever?
get a lot more people interested. Right, and then you can clarify what that means
Yeah.
when you actually sit down for the interview. I think that'll draw them in, like honey
If you do a
draws in
40-hour
flies.
week, you get the 62. But we're not requiring that
Right,
because a lot of people might not want to work a 40-hour week.
right.
So we're gonna be budgeting for 62?
That is what I'm planning to bring to you as part of the budget
That's what Tom's asking
process.
for now, is do we endorse him bringing forward a, do
Is
we
there enough
propose
left in the
salary?
budget for you to advertise someone now to be able to bring it to the 62 today? Just using that as an example.
How much
Don't,
is in there?
I don't know.
I did print the expenditure sheet that you so nicely said.
I
I'm sorry.
believe that by the time we hired somebody, it would be possible to get close to that. So we can be flexible on that now.
Well, you must be saving some now with somebody not collecting a salary.
Right,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly what I was thinking. So if we can just kind of.
and that was November, December, so we've already got a
So we're
bunch
not
of
gonna get
money.
anybody in January.
Yeah,
So-
probably won't get anybody.
Never know.
Won't start till February at
Right.
least.
Right,
Yeah,
And
so
now-
it's 25% of,
So
You have that financial spreadsheet right in front of you, right? Isn't that it right there?
this year, the budget sheet?
Yeah, his salary is on there, department number 175.
Yeah, well, I've got it
You
right
got it
here,
right-
I've
you
got
got
the
the-
budget right there. That's why I brought the book.
so that's already
Good
saved,
for
we've
you.
already saved
Karen must have given it to you.
$12,500.
Nope,
So,
She was
for
on the
the
phone.
remaining,
On board.
until we get to Jane, we've got it covered. There's more than enough money left over from nobody working to cover.
Well, all right.
Well,
Let's
but
do
again,
it.
I wouldn't
Well,
do
anyway,
that unless I had some indication. I've got it from the select board, I'm looking for it from you guys.
Correct.
So
And
do we
Unless I
need
had
to
an
make a
indication
motion
that was gonna
to-
continue next year.
I say we're giving it to you.
Yeah,
So
let's,
do we need to make a motion or
let's make
anything
a-
like
Let's,
that
just
to-
for the sake of saying we did it, let's make a motion.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that.
General
Then we'll be on
support for that would be fine without specifics at this point.
Yeah,
I'd entertain a motion, and when we make the motion, let's, if we can have the account number included.
175.
175 with
Got
the
it right in front
motion.
of you.
Okay, motion to raise it to 62,000?
Not sure what we're making a motion for. I guess I make,
I think supporting advertising
Make a
the
motion.
position for
Motion to
$56,000 to $62,000.
Right.
Yeah,
Because you can't
What
raise
he
that
said.
budget except at town meeting.
yeah, so
Right.
we're just
right.
So
advertising.
we get a.
We're in
Motion
support
to
of you bringing
advertise.
that forward as next year's
Yeah.
budget.
Should we,
Yeah.
so for those that haven't said any yes, aye or no, are you guys also in support of this action on part of the finance committee?
We'll see when the vote comes up.
Do we have a second on the motion? Made a motion,
Second.
got a second.
Now,
Peter over there ready diligently, he could be smoking that pencil in a minute. All right. Does everyone understand the motion, just
Yes.
before we go?
Yeah.
Are we clear? Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Any
Any
abstention?
abstentions? Got 'em. No abstentions. It passes unanimously, thank you. All right, next on the list is our senior center director. She is here to address the gang, even though it's a small one.
It's okay. So I'm here to talk to you about possibly creating a new job position here at the senior center, which would be a part-time flexed hour job. But we need some help here. And there's only 2 full-time people here. We have the center. People want things in the evening. People want activities in the evening. And kind of what brought me here today is because I was just recently awarded a grant for $8,000 to market the senior center. So I have 6 months to make the Dalton Senior Center the talk of the town. And met with members of the Council on Aging Board, and a lot of what they want are new programming. So if you look at our calendar is pretty full. We have some lull hours, and really those are kind of like catch-up hours for us. So we can't grow within these walls, so we have to grow up.
Right, right.
I have to say I'm tired.
How many people are in the staff now? Paid.
We have 2 full-time staff. That's
2.
Doran, the administrative assistant, and
COA.
myself, and
COA
then
clerk? Is
Patty.
that what that is?
Pardon?
COA clerk, is that what that is?
Yeah.
Looks like
Yeah, but we changed her title
yeah, that's fine then.
because she's not a clerk.
Yeah.
Right, but that's.
She's more like the assistant director, is more like what she does. We have 3 van drivers. We have a meal site manager who's kind of like the liaison between the senior center and the Council on Aging and Elder Services.
Uh-huh.
Because the Elder Services meals, they have a lot of requirements,
Right.
and we just can't meet those requirements and do our jobs too. And we only host 2 meals
Right,
a week
right.
from them.
Right.
I make the meal on Tuesday, and but we need somebody that has like community connections, that knows more people in the community to bring in more business, more activities. So like we've been talking with John Kelly, for example, to do, I'll have to go before the select board to get that alcohol permission,
Yeah.
but to do another wine tasting, and he had some other interesting ideas to tag on to that. That would be in the evening. A soup competition would be in the evening, so people would submit a different soup. And that's also part of the grant too, so.
What are the standard hours of operation?
Right now, we're 8 to 3.
Monday through Friday?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that
We're
today.
more 8 to 4.
But what you're talking about now is something that comes from our expanded formula grant. Right.
Yeah, the position the formula grant, we're gonna be receiving an additional $8,000. So it used to be like, what was it?
16,
20,
17, now it's 20,
no, it went up to 28.
2,800.
20, yeah, no,
1,000.
28,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
This year?
Yeah,
Oh.
I sent you that. So they increased it in 8,000, so that's what I want to do with the additional 8,000 is to put it into this position. So for this fiscal year, if we're able to hire somebody for this 14 hours I'm asking for, probably will not affect my budget. It would affect the town's budget a little bit because you have the, all those underlying costs, the taxes and all that stuff. Next year, the way I calculate it, for the 14 hours, it would be like 12,600 is I think what we calculated.
More like 12.5, but yeah.
Yeah.
12.5, 12.6.
So for an additional $4,600, you get like $12,000 worth of
Yeah.
employee.
Yeah,
And somebody out there helping us build on the programming that we're offering. So that's kind of what I'm asking. So here's $4,000, but spent more for the community. I mean,
Yeah,
Well,
so $4,500 to get a 14,500,
So-
or to get
so
a
what's your-
$12,500 position.
right,
It's a pretty good deal.
Right.
They were thinking.
but unfortunately, it is grant funded. It's based on the numbers for the 2020 census. They based it on a projection, so I don't know if it'll stay that high.
Well, and we have to say the position is
Grant funded.
grant funded, and that lets people know that
Potentially it could go away.
the funding, yeah.
But as long as the grant sustains it, you're just looking for that incremental money to round it up
Correct.
to 12.5.
Correct.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, so the budget would go from, excluding any increases or anything of that nature, we would increase by, we go up to, from 164,000 to about around 176,000 next year, excluding pay increases.
168.5,
68, yeah.
because it's up by 4,500. The 12.5, they get 8,000 from the grant, and they 4,500
Oh,
comes
yeah,
from our
the
pocket.
grant, we have to budget the entire amount, and then the grant comes back and.
No, not for the formula grant.
I don't even
The-
put the formula grant on that.
You don't- you
You'll
don't
see
see it on
in the
that.
budget
It shouldn't be.
that the formula grant is subsidizing a number of the positions.
I know
And,
that.
and in that total is not included the numbers for the formula grant.
You
Those
have-
numbers have the grant portion subtracted out from them. So what the town votes is the budget without the formula grant.
right.
So it would only be another
So this thing does,
4,500.
so the formula grant doesn't work in a similar manner to our communications grant.
No.
No, because that's a reimbursable grant. You get the money, formula grant.
Formula
twice a
grant,
year.
we get it anyway. It's like, they have expectations, we meet those expectations, they send it. I don't even have to send backup. So, because it's the way it works though. I mean, I used to. I mean, I didn't, I didn't have to send them receipts for office supplies and things like that, but, I have to do an annual report for them. But that's all they're asking. Because they switched it over to a, how many year grant?
I don't
Was
know.
it was, because we used to report annually, and
I just-
now it's gonna be, they don't have to sign the contract until like 2030 or something.
Oh, yeah, it's a 10-year.
Yeah, so library incentive grant works the same way. 2033. Exactly the same way. They don't have to do a reporting either.
Really?
So are we funding
That's
something
new.
for this fiscal year or for next? Or
It-
both?
No, it would just be for next, because this year it can all be paid out of the formula.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
we're
So
already
20
that far through the year.
Yeah,
So is this the same situation as we're just endorsing you coming in for an increase in the budget for next year?
In order to hire this year with the expectation of
That
the
it will
position
be supported?
continuing.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
so it's another heads up kind of thing.
yeah.
But will the formula grant still pay a piece of it? Okay.
the majority of it,
Okay.
because that's where I think that increase would be best spent.
35.
And on it goes. It's like, smoothing this Smoothing out these waves, please.
So there's a
Anyway,
couple of
okay.
things that would fall under this person's regular job description. One of the programs that we've always done, and which I think is very important, is called the LIFE program, where volunteers go into Cranville Place twice a month and entertain the residents. So they might do skits, or they play games with them, or you know, just help them to have a little bit of fun. Well, that's, with COVID, of course, that's fallen by the wayside. And the coordinator to that is not, she wants to retire from it. That would fall under that person to come up with the activities and to coordinate those volunteers to bring them in twice a month, because they're now ready to have somebody to come in. And the other thing is, and it takes a great deal of my time, is to helping out with the newsletter. Because I had started a newsletter over COVID to be able to keep in touch with people. And that takes a lot more time than I anticipated.
Are these hours gonna be enough with this person?
Well, you know, space is an issue, and that's why I say it'll be flex time. We have no office space. We don't have any storage space. We have no office space.
How many millions of dollars did we spend on this building and we're already out of space? Did I miss something?
I think
Had to
we
limit
were
the
out of
size of the
space
sprinkler
the
system.
day
Did
they
you not-
moved in.
Did you not?
If we went over
Did you not
5,000
design it?
square feet, we would've had to put sprinkler system in.
How much would a sprinkler system have cost in new construction? In new construction?
We can't even
Incrementally.
attach a building to the walkway without having to put in a
I
sprinkler
guess,
system.
right. I know. I know enough. I know enough about the sprinkler system laws that I can identify with this. But another $100,000 or what? $200,000 to this building?
Look at the guy who's critiquing the amount of money spent in various things
Quit thinking of it. Yeah, it's just like we're already outsized this building. I just,
Hey,
oh God. Oh.
So their hours would be flex hours. So essentially, if there's like an evening program, they would be working evening hours. During the week, my plan is to have the person have the health room, that little office down at the end of the hall. Because right now, besides storage, that room is being used for the veterans agent and foot care. And when we have somebody to do blood pressure clinics, they usually use that office also. But that's only on Wednesdays. So we have Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, where they would be able to set up office hours. There's a phone and computer in there. We'd have to have it set up with their own password so they can access the computer without getting into the veterans agent stuff. But Foot Care doesn't use it at all, so.
So we're looking at $12,000.
Four,
Or
five,
$4,500
4,500.
They get $5,000.
to supplement the 8,000 from the former.
Big spender.
God. Oh. I would have been happy with
You
200,000 or
throw it-
300,000 being tossed in this
You
building,
throw
put
it around like
sprinklers
it's
in it,
your
and
own.
it's bigger. Well, why not? Why not? We got $1.2 million available on the Proposition 2.5 override, so throttle up.
Well, I
Let's do
haven't
it.
asked you for the barn yet.
Okay, you
Back
got a
there.
barn plan? Nice.
The barn back there, I want to turn it into a men's den.
I'm good with that. Let's do it. Yeah.
Five
Yeah,
or seven.
we're blowing money like no tomorrow. Let's do it.
You're gonna need a beer tap in there.
Absolutely.
Need to keep them away from the women, that's.
No, it's not that. It's just they want different things. They want wood shop. I don't have a place to put a wood shop. I don't have a place to put a pool table. I don't have, the building wasn't designed for all these things.
Now, combined workbench pool table, can you get Hill Engineering in on that much?
I make a motion to recommend that the senior center budget be anticipating an increase in salaries, I guess, of $4,500
Second.
next year.
A motion has been made to increase, and seconded to increase the budget for next year for the Council on Aging to accommodate $4,500 in salary. Are there any other discussions concerning the motion?
No.
Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? That is unanimous.
Any abstentions?
No abstentions.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
you're welcome.
Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly. Much appreciated.
Watch for good things. I expect to see you here at some of them.
Yeah, I just had a good idea about making
All right.
the senior center the talk of the town. It involves having seniors
All
go
right.
out to
I want
various
to, this,
venues in town and do things.
okay.
Do things?
Yeah, we'll talk.
Okay.
We'll make people talk about it.
Yeah. Well, wait till that poster series is done.
Yeah,
That's gonna be awesome.
Think living
Why, thank you.
poster.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Kelly.
very much.
Much appreciated. All right, next on the agenda is review of the DOR free cash disbursement and stabilization funds and such. Something's come to our attention, as I've kind of emailed everyone on it. Something's come to our attention from the DOR. Tom happened to pick this up, and I've often wondered about this myself, if there was a mechanism that we or someone could put in place of policies to handle our free cash disbursements. We have disbursements each year that go to, let me just dig them out. The OPEB trust is one of them. The general stabilization, capital stabilization, legal stabilization, and
Yeah, litigation, right?
Sewer.
or litigation, and then sewer stabilization, which are all stabilization accounts that are used. Ours are very healthy at this time, which is good news, and we want to kind of keep it that way. And the way to do that is to have a policy of some kind that says, and I don't want everyone to think that these policies, as we've seen from the town of Belmont, I don't want people to think that these policies are so rigid that they can't bend. So in other words, if we have a rather large, we'll use it as an example, legal stabilization or litigation stabilization account. If that thing happens to be approaching $1 million, well, are we ever going to reuse $1 million at any given time for that? Of course not. So we would not. We could then choose not to follow the policy. That doesn't mean you're against the law. That just means you choose not to follow that policy at that time
So basically
because
what you're
it's not
saying,
needed.
because what you're basically saying then is there will be a cap on certain accounts, and then once you
We
get to the
could.
cap, that you would no longer start refilling it until it went below the cap.
Correct, and that's and you could set a cap at a given number. What that could be arrived at through, I would assume that would be arrived at through the finance committee, and different mechanisms within that to set the policy.
Well-
I'm not quite sure how we go about setting policy within the town, but that's something for us. It's another reason why we've kind of come to these monthly meetings, is because things like this keep coming up for us to talk about. And we I would, from a personal viewpoint, would like to see this pursued, because because our stabilization accounts are good, and we can utilize them to do capital expenditures without having it ultimately land on the taxpayer immediately. In other words, we would then be using funds, if for instance we draw it down a little bit and we take it down below that capped amount, well then we don't use that for a period of time. If we have to borrow to make a capital expenditure out of that, well then we borrow to do that instead of using the stabilization accounts. So yes. Tom.
And DOR does have some recommendations for instance, how much free cash you should have every year. You should have at least this much, but not more than this, is the kind of way that they put that forward. And it's not just free cash and stabilization accounts they're talking about your debt load. They're talking about all of the financial indicators of a town. And what it would be helpful would be to try to start getting a grasp on what the scope of the financial policies should be for Dalton, and then trying some of them out and say, well, let's try to work within this framework. And one of the things that the DOR also does upon request is both a management review of the town and a financial review of the town. And those, the management review is very broad. Well, I think we had one done about 10 years ago or 12. And they come up with recommendations. Here's what you have. Consider these, 2 dozen steps to take in order to tighten up your systems. But before doing anything like that, it would be a good idea to have some financial policies already in place so that they could look at them and say, yeah, those are good policies. Or, based on your budget, maybe you want to look at it a little bit more like this and tweak this in this direction. So, again, there's a wide possible range of policies that the Finance Committee could have that lets you know that you're operating according to generally accepted best municipal financial management practices on the sort of Finance Committee level in terms of your recommendations for how to handle some of these larger concepts. And then you'll know that it's a check. We'll know we're doing it right, rather than thinking, oh yeah, looks like we're in a pretty good place here,
Well, that's kind of, because I've been at this as long as I've been at this, that's kind of how I kind of gauge things. Is I just kind of look at it and it's more of you feel it than you have a number to look at and go over. So when it comes down to that, having some level of policy instead of having somebody winging it, that's probably a better idea, in my opinion.
well, it's also easier to explain it to the residents and to say, this is considered a good range of free cash. This is considered a good range of investment in the community. Both of the smaller towns that I worked in before were shocked to find out that DOR actually advocated a certain amount of town debt. These are towns that never gone into debt for anything, and if they did, they paid it off right away. But just like personal debt, having it and paying it off and having your personal finances or capital grow is considered a good thing. And DOR thinks that you're not investing in your community if you don't have capital projects going that are keeping up with your old sewer system before it falls apart, and keeping up with your buildings before they fall apart, things like that. So and some towns, I think, can legitimately say, we don't think we need to follow DOR's recommendations on this, and here's why. But it's good to know what they are. It's good to have a policy to say, this is how we're going to treat this. We know this is how we're treating it. We're fully aware of it. We know what DOR calls the best the best practice. We know that this is what we believe our best practice is for this reason. So, again, not ironclad rules, a set of guidelines to know that if you deviate from them, that you're deviating from something, and have a rationale for it.
Correct. That's my thought. So the next question is, how do we go about drafting them? Do we just throw something down on the sheet, which I know that's not the case, but do we throw something down on a sheet of paper, or do we?
You ask for 351 examples of all the policies out there.
Exactly. No, we don't need.
But
A lot don't.
Must only
Yeah.
be 350.
But how is it we go about starting the process? In looking at Belmont, it looks, the wording and such with Belmont seems to kind of fit what we do to some degree. I can
Well,
see a
they're a
whole lot of.
larger community.
The size of the community doesn't matter to me when
Well,
it comes to that.
it has to do with the complexity of it and the degree of urbanization and things like that, so.
It's
the-
more,
the-
for
the-
me, it's more management of it than it is. If someone has a good
Yeah.
idea, I don't care if they're Boston or Savoy. It doesn't, if they have a good way of showing us how to manage these things.
Savoy doesn't need a sewer stabilization fund.
Well, I get that, but the point being is that if someone has a upstanding way to do that, I have no problem with plagiarizing it. I'm sure if we called the town of Belmont, they'd be more than glad to say, yeah, go ahead, use what we have and use an example. I'm just using them as an example.
This is all
I like
free-
what they do.
It's just all free information. You don't have to
Right.
get anybody's permission to do anything.
Right.
You know, there are any number of places we can go to. Towns, I would say, starting with maybe some towns of a similar size and seeing what they have. I'd also suggest, just from my personal knowledge, the town of Concord has an extraordinary financial function.
I was thinking the town of Concord and the town of Norfolk, they have almost, the town of Norfolk is almost exactly the size of the town of Dalton with similar, they have very similar kind of logistics, although they're more of an urban town than a suburban town.
I thought you had something to add.
I do. The email that you got also contained something about that the state is willing to help communities build these kinds of things. And there must be a contact in that.
Yeah,
So
I haven't,
that would be even just to ask the simple question that you just asked.
yeah,
How do we go about starting?
I think that's kind of where I was going with it. I was just asking the question if we had some starting points. So, all right, I will see if I can, before our next meeting, I'll see if I can look into finding out how we can get some policies started with relationship to our financial position.
I bet Great Barrington has some good ones.
Great
I
Barrington.
bet Williamstown
Are
has
these
some
are,
good
I
ones.
Great
guess the
Barrington
question,
had-
are they all something I can go on their website and get?
Yes.
Or is it something that,
Yes,
Okay,
Great
maybe
Barrington,
that.
Great Barrington is financial policy is sitting there.
okay.
It's a
I'll go.
23-page policy developed by DOR in
Yeah.
the last 2 years. And
Oh, it was developed by DOR. So there.
There you go. There you
Yeah,
go.
well,
So it was developed by
Well,
DOR,
on
and
that
lists the
website there
names
were-
of the two people that actually, from DOR, that developed it.
Yeah, and
I
the
just
link
jumped
takes
on
you
it.
to a page that lists all of their financial
Okay.
management
All right,
studies
into
that
that.
they've done
What
recently.
did Conway do?
I'm sorry?
What did Conway do? Town of Conway.
Oh, Conway.
You remember them?
nothing.
Conway has some financial policies.
I just wonder your past experience, that's all.
Yes, well, we had we actually had a relatively recent financial, a management study done, of which financial policies were a smaller part. But we ended up, and what we ended up with were more of financial office policies. How to use credit cards, how, you know, it was more of the micro
Okay,
stuff.
so you didn't get into this over there?
Yeah, we didn't have the financial review as such.
Uh-huh.
The other thing that I thought was good about the Great Barrington stuff is it's not just this subsection, but it gives us an entire policy, a full set of policies relating to the finance system. So I think that would be an excellent thing to adopt, because right now the town of Dalton, as I understand it, has no financial policies at all, zero.
Nobody home.
I've never seen any.
Going
Right.
around and looked, nobody home.
Right.
The policies or the thought processes surrounding our financial team have been excellent in recent
Right.
years. Better than excellent. It's put us in an exceptional position. So it's thanks to Sandy, Don, and Kenny Walto. those three people have put us and also Terry Williams have put us all in this really great position. So, and if we can kind of look to what they've done for us over those years and turn those things into policies, we can continue this financial success into the future. But if we just sit here and hope that people like Sandy and Dawn, well, of course, Kenny went and retired on us, and so did Terry. If we can get it done before the last two people that put us in this position go and retire on us, then maybe we can kind of set ourselves up for some even further longevity into this. So, all right. Okay, I will do a little more legwork and see where we can.
The other difference
send
is
this thing.
that the way Belmont generated their policies is it was basically you sign off on each policy.
Mhm.
The way Great Barrington's is you sign off on the book of policies. The entire group of policies in one. So I think it's a little simpler. And I think it's it's an interesting contrast. You can see both methods of approaching the problem.
Okay.
So is the
Sounds great,
DOR
thank you.
representative that helped author those policies listed anywhere on them?
Yes.
I don't know it's listed
Great
on the
Barrington.
policy per se, but if you went in there,
Well, I'm
in what I
gonna
read,
surf around.
it was there.
Yeah, I'm gonna surf around the DOR a little further than I did. I just clicked on it, took a glance at it. And
And they must have a whole department for that.
So, I'm gonna take a deeper dive into that and have that for our next meeting. Now, I just wanna move along, cause we're getting late. I was hoping to keep this to an hour, it's now an hour and a half. The last thing is the sewer line installation on Dalton Division Road. If you can give us a kind of a quick rundown of what's happening with that, it'd be appreciated.
Yeah, well, we've got engineering going, the town sewer line on Dalton Division Road. Right,
Yes.
yeah, we're waiting for an estimate for the engineering fee. We expect it by the end of the month.
Okay. Right now, has there been communication with the city of Pittsfield, considering Pittsfield has houses along that route that are not connected to the public sewer? Considering it's gonna be running in front of their houses, it might behoove us to contact the city of Pittsfield and say, look, this is what we've got going on. The other thing is, with that being said, you would be taking in two communities that may make us eligible for some infrastructure funding. Because there is, from a green viewpoint, they're attempting to get rid of private sewer systems. So if you have a line running in front of your house, it's generally required to hook into it. That's via Title V, I believe. So that's something we need to be very cognizant of going forward with this. Yeah. I did a little digging.
Because I know
Not a lot, just a little.
there are some people along that stretch who live a substantial distance away from where the line would be.
That would be reviewed during.
Up the hill.
You aren't
Yeah,
kidding.
up on the mountain. They're up on the mountain. I'm sure there is a distance allowance when it comes to that sewer line. I'll guarantee you there is. Because as you know, with all codes and things of that nature, there's always a contingency of some kind to allow for cases like that. One of the houses is almost a half a mile away from it. It's way out there. So, being that kind of a distance, you wouldn't want to make that person run a sewer line all the way down. Like I said, there's contingencies. So, I just was hoping that we could at least have that. We don't want to have that sneak up on us, I think is the key.
Yeah, well, that would,
And that would be
I
a
hope that would
sneak
come
up.
up during the engineering.
Yeah.
As for the Pittsfield part of it, the way the original proposal was pitched, it did not include that, and at this point, it's not part of the engineering. That was something, that just, in the way it was presented and discussed at the select board, that was not included. So
Okay.
that would have to be changed at that level.
Could we have maybe I'll have to have a conversation with our select board chair and have the select board chair reach out to the mayor, find out what's going on, or the engineers over it.
I'm happy to
Over
reach
city
out
hall.
if the select board has that discussion. Of course, any policy of that nature should be discussed by the board as a whole.
That, well, that it was more of a reach out and find out what the city of Pittsfield is, if at all, is thinking about. That was more of, instead of making a decision on it, it was more of, what do you think about over there? It's one of those.
So you're absolutely sure that some of them don't have sewer hookup on the Pittsfield
I
side?
would say from Jehovah Witness to
Scalise.
Scalise Drive. Scalise Drive is connected. They go down to Leona Drive.
Yeah, but everything north of there, north of there is not.
Correct. To Jehovah
Up to
Witness, I
Jehovah.
think, is the last.
But they're on our side, right?
What's on?
Jehovah Witnesses are on the Dalton side.
They are, but there's houses on the Pittsfield side, on the other
Pittsfield
side
side.
of the road.
Oh,
There
the
are
ones that
houses,
are down
there's-
the hill a little bit.
Off the top
There's a
of
lot
my
more than
head,
you think.
One,
Yeah.
2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at least that I can think of. Right off the top
Right
of my
around
head.
in that same area.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Someone said at the little special town meeting there were 14 houses down there that had to be connected. I thought that number was rather low.
I thought it was rather high, assuming
Well,
that
I'm
they're
not thinking
talking
Dalton,
about
I'm
just
thinking-
Dalton.
Right.
Yeah.
Dalton, it was only a few actually. I think it's only
It was
7
like
houses
eight or
something.
10, yeah.
It's not-
10 max, probably.
Yeah.
8 reasonable.
Not very
But when
many.
you put in the Pittsfield side, that number goes up substantially.
And that was kind of my point with funding.
And I agree.
That was, they may, and the thing is, the city of Pittsfield may go the same route we did and just throw ARPA at it.
And just what?
Throw ARPA money at it.
Oh.
So they may take that route as well. So, all right. I will send an email to Mr. Diver just to let him know the thoughts. And you get to run around and figure it out. Sorry, guys, sorry. But I think we need to include the city of Pittsfield. I think that's important.
There's a shared benefit for sure.
Absolutely. All right, that kind of is a bit of a wrap on our, are there any other things that come before the committee? I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So be it.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
I
Abstain.